and I will, I'll explain the rules, so when we get started, just so I don't repeat myself. Should we keep that name tag out, or should we get rid of it?
I think we can,
I don't know if that's visible on a.
it would be on a
Yeah.
wire strap, so we'll go ahead. If she does come, we'll put it back out.
If she does walk in, do we have her sit down?
Are you guys okay with that?
That's fine with me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was she not called and said she's at?
She originally, when I sent it out, said she may, she wasn't sure if she was coming back from a trip or something.
But you haven't heard her since.
No.
All right. Okay. All right, I'll get started in just a bit. Make sure that they're ready to go. Welcome to the Spring 2024 Monona Grove School Board Candidate Forum, sponsored by Monona Community Media. I'm Joy Cardine from the League of Women Voters of Dane County, and I'll be your moderator today. The April 2nd election includes a race for Monona Grove School Board. There are 4 candidates running for 3 seats. The candidates are Philip Haven, Janice Stone, Eric Hartz, and Katie Moreau. We have 3 of the 4 candidates with us today. Katie is not in attendance. The candidates will answer questions prepared by Monona Community Media that include questions that were submitted online by voters ahead of time. We are going to be rotating which candidate answers a question first each time there's a question. So that way the same candidate isn't answering first or answering last. We will alternate the order. Here are the forum rules. You will have a minute 30 for opening statements. You will have a minute 30 to answer every question. You will have another minute 30 for closing remarks. We will continue to ask questions until we run out of time or until we run out of questions. Please respond only to the questions that are being asked. Don't reference other candidates in your answers, and of course, no personal attacks. Do follow the minute 30 time limit for your answers. You will see the clock running down on the screen to my side. If you run out of time, just finish your thought. You don't have to necessarily stop mid-syllable, but don't continue on with another thought. That way we can get in as many questions as possible. So residents can view this forum live on the Monona Community Media YouTube channel. We are not going to be accepting questions live from the audience or via online. We are using questions that were submitted ahead of time. So we randomly selected the order in which we will do the opening statements, and the first person for opening statements is Philip Haven.
All right. Thank you, Joy. First, I'd just like to thank Joy and the League for putting this together. I think this is great. I'd like to thank Eric and Janice for participating. I think this is a really good thing to do for community engagement in the election process. My name is Philip Haven. I live in Monona with my 2 kids and my wife. I will have school-age children in the district for about 15 more years. I filled an appointed seat a year ago, and so I've had the privilege of spending about a year on the school board, and this is my first time actually on the ballot to be elected to the school board. My interest in the board is pretty straightforward. I am married to an educator. I grew up with an educator as a father. My dad also served on my local school board when I was a kid. I strongly believe that public education is, the biggest pillar in our community, the most important pillar to support. And so my goal on the school board is to be a steward for our school district. I think we have a terrific school district. I don't have a particular lightning rod issue that I'm coming in to try to fix. I want to be here to be a reasonable voice in the room, to be a good listener, to collaborate with the other board members and the community in finding solutions to the challenges that'll come up. It's never a finished job, right? It's not a linear thing that we can just come in and solve schools. We know some of the challenges. We don't know some of the challenges that are coming up, and we need, calm and careful minds on the board to work through these things.
Janice.
Hi, thank you, Joy, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. My name is Janice Stone, and I've lived in Cottage Grove for about 20 years. I retired this past June after teaching in the district for 30 years. I taught elementary strings, middle school band, and after retiring, I did this fall a long-term sub job teaching high school band for one of my colleagues. I have had the opportunity to teach in every building in the district through my work teaching summer school, which moved around from year to year. And I feel like my experience teaching at all the different levels, as well as just knowing the communities really well, have helped me be prepared to potentially take on another role. I would really like to be involved in the school board because I think we have a wonderful district. And at the middle school level, I was able to see students from both communities come together and have wonderful educational opportunities. So my goal is to work together with the other board members to make sure that all students have an opportunity to have academic excellence and personal growth throughout their career.
Eric.
Hello, I'm Eric Hartz. This will be my third term that I'm running for. I finished 2 terms, one in 2018, one in 2021. Thanks, Joy, League of Women Voters, and everybody who's here from the community. I am a father of 2 girls. One is 10, and I have a new member of the family who's 10 months. So my children will be in this school district for quite a long time moving forward. My wife and I moved here specifically for the school district because we are both currently educators in the Madison School District. So we were very aware of the community and the school district and the schools here and the great teachers here too. So it was a very conscious choice that we made. And when we moved here, I wanted to be more involved. So I ran for the school board, and since I've served 2 terms, I tried to learn and adapt and listen to the community members and constituents in both Cottage Grove and Monona to try to do what's in the best interests of our students, because I think that's the priority that we all should have as a community, to educate everyone in our district. So I hope to continue that for a 3rd term and work with the other board members and the community so that I can, give whatever knowledge and advice and learn what I can from making this district a better school district for everyone.
Okay, the first question, we will have Janice start. Describe your top 3 objectives if you're elected to the school board.
My first objective would be for our district to move towards having clear and transparent processes for making decisions. There's always decisions that need to be made, there's issues that come up, and I feel like collaboration and communication are the 2 things that are going to help our district move forward through whatever the issues might be. If we have good collaboration, it's going to make the stakeholders who are involved in that decision-making process feel included. It's very important for people to feel that their voices are heard and considered. Even if a decision is made that maybe doesn't make everyone happy, if people have the opportunity to be able to give their feedback and give their input, it really helps the decision-making process be a better process. And then along with that, transparency in the decision-making processes as well. So if there is an issue that comes up, just having a lot of venues for communicating with stakeholders, with families, with teachers, with the community about the issues that the board is facing or the school district is facing. Another priority that I would have, just really briefly, is making sure that the climate and as our district as our district needs to attract and retain qualified staff, because there are fewer teachers than there used to be, we need to make our district a place where people want to spend their entire career.
Thank you. Eric?
3 objectives that I think are important. I wouldn't necessarily say like I have an agenda to try to do anything, because working on the board, you really have to be able to work with a lot of different people and the other board members to try to come to a common goal. But there are 3 things that are going to be important coming up. One of them will be the new teacher contract and staff contracts and salaries that we're going to be negotiating soon with the with the COI from the state and the funding, so that will be important. The other one is our superintendent search that we're kind of going to be finishing up now with the current board. And the new board's really going to be responsible for onboarding and working with the new superintendent and making sure that they have the resources that they need, and also holding them accountable too for the district. And then the other topic I think is going to be really important is our grade configuration change for the schools in Cottage Grove. So we're going to be moving from a K4K and a 1-2 school to having 2 schools that are K4-2. So that's a pretty significant change for that community, and I think that it's important to make sure that community feels comfortable with that change. It's going to happen in 2025. We've already voted on it, but there are still a lot of things that we need to do related to that.
Philip?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's focusing on the things that the board should appropriately have influence on, right? And so the superintendent search is the big one. We're in the latter stages of that. We're going to be wrapping that up shortly. And then, of course, we go into the first year of that new superintendent, and I think it's going to be really important to get off on a solid footing, and that the board establishes rapport and the superintendent establishes rapport within the district and the community. So that'll be a big one for this next year. The grade reconfiguration is also an important one, particularly how we work with the community on that and collaborate with all of the stakeholders, the parents, in working through that change smoothly. And then I think for me, the other one is broadly how we as a board support our staff, right? So everyone from, support staff, the teachers, the administrators, and the ways, there's different ways the board can support the staff. We can support them, of course, directly through compensation. And I think it's always important to me that we're constantly looking at how do we run this school district in such a way that we can increasingly more equitably pay our staff. So any opportunities we have to do that. And then we can also influence their ability to do the jobs that they want to do well through policy. And so I think constantly looking for opportunities to write policy, correct policy, et cetera, so that we're setting the stage, if you will, for our staff to, as easily as possible, do the jobs that they are trained to do and want to do.
Next question. There might be some repetition here, but do your best. What do you hope to accomplish in your term in office? And that will go to Eric first.
In the next term, in my 3rd term, I would like to remain the chairman of the personnel committee. And one of the priorities that I want is I would like I think it's 4.2% increase that's been established by the state. I might be wrong on the exact percentage, but that's close to it. I would like that to be negotiated in good faith with teachers and staff in the building. So I think there's going to be a lot of work to make sure that we can do that. So that's going to be a priority that I have and something that I'm doing if I serve another term. So in addition to that, when I first started, I proposed a new committee called the Teaching, Learning, and Equity Committee. That didn't exist before, and I think that they've done a lot of important work. So I really would like to listen to the community and see if there's any other issues like that might not be that we may not be addressing right now, and see if it's if it would be important to maybe look at creating another committee that it would address some concerns. We've already have one for the grade configuration, and we already have one for equity. So that might not be the case, but you never know what comes up. When COVID came, there was a lot of new things. So I think I just want to be more open and listen to everybody in the community and try to, help implement some of the changes they want.
Philip.
So this will be my first full term. In the first year that I have served on the board, one of the things that became apparent to me immediately is that you don't become an effective board member, right out of the gate. There's a lot to learn. A lot of the board functioning smoothly has to do with simply understanding how the machine works and how to properly be part of that machine and work with the rest of the board members and that sort of thing. So in this, effectively first term for me, one of my goals would be to continue to become a more effective board member. Through continuing to learn about the district and the rules and the regulations around how we manage a district. And then on top of that, and I apologize, I don't have a timer, so I hope I'm not bumping up against my minute and a half.
I think the zero means...
It's been zero the whole time.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
The other thing I was going to mention is with the new superintendent, this first term for me, this first full 3-year term, a big goal for me would be establishing what the future looks like with this superintendent, the relationship to the community, and how we collaborate with the community. Hopefully better than we have. Not that we've been awful about it, but I think it should be better.
Okay. Well, I think we actually are going to be joined by our by our fourth candidate, who's going to be on the ballot, and we'll get to that shortly, I guess, as soon as we can get her up here. Anyway, the next question is, in the development of a school district budget, what goals and objectives would guide your decision-making?
Janice didn't answer
Excuse
the
me.
last question.
What's that?
I need to answer the previous question.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay.
A little distraction going on.
No,
Yeah.
of course, not a problem. And I can be pretty brief about it. As a new school board member, I would definitely need to take some time to learn how the board functions and to be on the school board and how to be the most effective school board member that I could be. I really believe in communication and collaboration. I would like to be able to work together with all the board members to make our district a place where we can do effective things for students. I would like to be able to hear from staff and community and families about the issues that they are concerned about, and then I would definitely want to build a relationship with not only the new superintendent, but we will be having a new HR director as well. So just building a relationship with the new administrators that are coming into our district.
My apologies. Well, we will reset here and allow our fourth candidate to introduce herself and make your opening statement as to your run for the school board.
I'm Katie Morrow. I have lived in Cottage Grove for 16 plus years with my husband Paul. I'm mom to 5 boys ranging from ages 15 to twin 3-year-olds. Like many people in the district, we're spread across multiple schools, and I bring being in the school district for as long as I have with my 15-year-old, I've seen different ways the school affects our children and the board affects our children, and I would really like to be part of that, really focusing on diversity, equity, inclusion, and possibly adding belonging to a community in the mental health services for our children.
And the question that was just asked of the other 3 candidates, what do you hope to accomplish in a term in office?
Keeping things going as they are going. I think the board has done a wonderful job moving things in the right direction after the pandemic. We've seen a lot of issues with mental health in our schools and our students, as well as our staff, so making sure that they're supported. Also making sure we're including more diversity across our staff and feeling that all students feel supported, and inclusivity too is really important to me. Having one child with a disability and a rare medical condition, I'd like to see that continue to progress in our schools.
And welcome, by the way.
Thank you.
I know you're
So
traveling.
sorry about that. As you see, I have 2 children here.
All right, the next question is, in the development of a school district budget, what goals and objectives would guide your decision-making? And we'll have Philip start.
Sure. So, the school district budget is largely made up of salaries, right? By far the biggest portion of the budget is salaries, and salaries are too low. They always have been, and it's gotten worse. If you look at the curve over the past 30 years and adjust for inflation, we're not moving in the right direction. It was great that we were able to do the increase we did last year, but ultimately, we're as a society, we're not paying teachers enough, and the rest of the staff that support the district. So, the budget, like I said, is mostly salaries. When we look at planning for the budget, to me, the most important thing is that we're as responsible as we possibly can be with the other part, the roughly, I think, 20 to 25% that's not salaries, to make sure that we're not wasting dollars anywhere. We're not talking about cutting programs or things like that, but just making sure that the things that we're doing thoughtfully and carefully so that we have as much left over to equitably pay our educators.
Yes.
In the development of the budget, I agree. The main part of the budget is definitely salaries, and so working together with the board, the personnel committee, and then the different bargaining groups to make sure that they have a good process for determining what the increase will be for the upcoming year. I do think our district should be proud that every single year the district has raised salaries by or exceeded the limit, the CPI limit. And so the district has been very supportive of staff. I'm not saying that it's where it should be, but salaries are, but it has helped a lot, and our district should be proud of that work. I think in looking at the budget, one of the other things that we will need to consider is, because there will be a division of students between two elementary schools in the reconfiguration, what money needs to be spent to refit or outfit those schools to make them appropriately sized for the students that will be there. For example, is the playground equipment suitable for all ages that will be attending those schools? So those things will also need to be taken into consideration as well.
Thank you. Eric?
With regards to the budget, as Philip mentioned, staff and salaries is a big piece of that. Enrollment is, school budgets are very dependent on enrollment in the communities, so that's how the state comes up with the funding formula. That's the main source of income we have related to property taxes and the mill rate. So the enrollment is really healthy in Monona and Cottage Grove right now. However, we are going to see a drop because of birth rates, and that's pretty much across the United States. So that could potentially affect us, although, with Cottage Grove and the growth that we see there, hopefully that will offset with more people continue to move into our community. But it's something definitely to be aware of in the future. And with that, we also have a couple facilities like Maywood that we need to decide what we want to do with. There's some other properties we have that we could potentially do something with to create more revenue and sell those. But we have a healthy, sustainable energy committee, so I think the school district is in good shape financially, especially with the previous referendum that we passed in the community. So I think we're in a good state with the budget, but a couple things that we have to pay attention to moving forward.
Katie?
In regards to the budget, I do agree, like everybody else said, salaries is really important to me. Our students are our future, and the teachers and all the staff are part of that and making them to be our future and what is the best. I do know with the way Wisconsin's funding is, all schools in Wisconsin are not getting the funding that we need, and I'm very big on advocacy and have great relationship state and federally. And I think moving forward and looking at those bills is going to be really important to not only our school district, but all schools in Wisconsin, on making sure that we're getting the funding that's coming in for all the things that we need, keeping our teachers and staff paid the way they should be. And then with the reconfigurations of the schools, I know that the Cottage Grove School, the playground is not up to date. Like, it's pretty advanced for even first and second graders, and because I have a first grader and a third grader that went through it, where kids are getting hurt until they get used to the playground. So I've talked with the schools and actually did a lot of research on finding ways we can make that more accessible and inclusive to like all the children in a budget-friendly way. So just, I think, doing that research.
All right, thank you. Next question, and we will have Janice start this one. Describe the kind of relationships you want to have with your fellow board members.
I would love to work collaboratively with all of the school board members. I believe that our district has a long history of people on the school board. They are on the school board because they care about students and they care about public education. So I feel like there's nothing that we can't do if we all work together, and whatever issues come up, whatever it is that we need to face, if we work together, I feel like we can do great things for the students of our district. So I guess my first priority would be getting to know individually the members of the school board. I do have some previous relationships with some school board members, but I don't know everyone. And I would really like to build those relationships so that we could do good work together.
Eric? Your turn.
Oh, sorry. Well, it has to be a collaborative relationship for sure, and respect everybody's views and opinions. I happen to think we have a very good board in that we discuss everything and look at all the options, and the end conclusion is usually what's in the best interest of the community. How we get there in that process sometimes can be, a little frustrating, and it might be, hard to watch, but that's the process that we have. So, and I think that's the important part of the process, and being a board member is to understand that and follow it, because there's going to be times when people don't agree on everything. So I think you have to be respectful, and I've learned in my first 2 terms that, sometimes you have this feeling that you want to get your views and your points across, but sometimes it's best to just sit back and listen to people and reapproach it in other ways, because if you get too emotional with a lot of decisions, it doesn't lead to productivity on the board. So that's how I feel, but I think I have a pretty good working relationship with the current board, and I'm sure that I'll have a good working relationship with the new board too.
Katie?
I want to echo everything that they said. I agree. We need to work collaboratively, and I think that I'm able to do that, as well as the current board I know is able to do that now. Being respectful, I think always being respectful and listening, even if you don't agree. Maybe somebody has really valid points that I didn't think of, and I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. As Eric said, I like to sit back and I like to sit and take it in and see what other people are thinking. I've worked on several other boards and different projects, not necessarily in our school district, but throughout the U.S. With multiple things pertaining to rare disease. And you really have to sit back, because not every parent in that situation has the same ideas as you do, but everybody has great ideas, and you just have to work on how you can mesh those together.
Philip?
Yeah, so certainly don't disagree with anything that's been said so far. I think much like our schools, the board needs to feel like a safe place for the board members too, so that everyone who may have differing opinions feels like they can state those opinions, share them with the board, and that they'll be heard, the same as everybody else. In my year on the board, I've been very impressed with our current board. I think we've worked really well together. I think disagreement is good. If you're not disagreeing ever, I think that can be a sign that maybe you're not investigating all the possible options, or maybe someone's afraid to speak up. So I think constructive conflict and polite conflict is a really healthy thing to have on a board. It means you're working through it and heading towards a good outcome. So yeah, I would hope to be in a very respectful relationship with my board members, my fellow board members, and I hope they'd feel the same way about me.
All right, next question, and Eric starts this one. How could you help the board become more effective, or even more effective?
Well, I think there's always, room to improve. So, and I think for me, I could just be self-critical of myself. I mean, this next term, I think sometimes I get really passionate about certain issues. So I feel like I really want to make the change, and I think, I could do a better job of maybe being a little bit more open and just maybe sitting back and listening a little bit more than I do, because sometimes I can tend to talk a little bit and get off on a tangent but it's because I'm super passionate about the issues. That's why I'm doing it. So, the other thing is I really want to I want to improve the relationships with Cottage Grove and Monona, and because I live in Monona, I want to make sure that the community members in Cottage Grove feel like they have a voice too, because we are a dual district. So it's important to involve both Monona and Cottage Grove. We're not just the Monona School District, and we're not just the Cottage Grove School District. So that's one of the things I'd really like to focus in the next term too.
Katie?
I think to help improve or make better, I think it's functioning really well. For me, I think it would be being able to bring that Cottage Grove voice into our district more and try to blend our communities together, because sitting in Cottage Grove, it very much feels like they're always at odds with each other. I think involving the other parts of the municipalities, like the village board, where I was sitting in on the Cottage Grove PTO meeting this last week, and that was very clear that there was not a lot of talking back and forth between the village and the school district, and making sure that we're working together with each other. And I think just really listening. I do get very passionate about many things, especially special education and inclusion and diversity, and just making sure that I'm listening to everybody and bringing in also the voices of our community too, making sure that both Monona and Cottage Grove feel like their voices are being heard.
Philip?
Yeah, so two things come to mind for me. One is the continued growth of myself as a board member, right? So I'm only a year in, and like I said, that first year was a lot of learning, and there's no way that I'm done. I think, as I continue to become more knowledgeable and comfortable with the inner workings of the district and the board, that will make me a better contributor to the board. And then, from the perspective of the board, I think we could do a better job of structuring our objectives in such a way that they don't sort of just pop up on an agenda. I think that one thing I've observed in the first year is that we could be a bit more organized in how we foreshadow what's coming up, what we're planning to make decisions on a little bit further out, so that by the time we're actually voting and deciding on things, they've been kind of out in the ether for a little while and people are aware of them. So I think that we have room to improve in that regard.
Janice?
Throughout my career, I was a leader in the Monona Grove Education Association, and I had many opportunities to work with the school board on committees. And so I also have a long history, knowledge of the district's history and how we got to where we got. And I think that would just be a perspective that's different on the board, and I think that would help the board moving forward. We don't have to repeat our history, but just understanding where we've come from and how we got to where we are now, I think is a valuable insight. I also worked at the middle school, and I know that there's typically been some tension between the high school, or not the high school, but Monona and Cottage Grove. And what I've seen throughout my career is we are better as a district together. I loved seeing the kids come from both communities, get to know each other, and really thrive in I taught band, so didn't matter which community you came from, we're all playing the same music together, and we were definitely better when we did it together. So I guess I would just like to help you bring that to the board if possible, so that our communities could all feel supported.
Okay, thank you. Next question, related. How can we build more collaboration and community within our district between the two communities? And Katie is the first answerer.
Excellent, thank you. Kind of like I said in the last one, I think collaborating with those different municipalities, especially with the village of Cottage Grove as it keeps growing and expanding, we need to make sure that we're including those ideas too, and we're seeing where the village is going and how the district's going to continue to grow, right? We're building more housing, more apartments, possibly bringing a lot more children into it. So we need to make sure that we're working together and making sure that the schools can actually support the number of students that are possibly coming in. And I was thinking about this the other day, and even maybe having, and this is probably doesn't work, we always have the school board meetings at the district office. Can we rotate so we can get more community involvement in through like the different schools? Are they able to set it up that way? And making sure we're bringing, I think, that community voice in and making sure everybody's feeling heard.
Philip.
Yeah, so I think the main thing with this one is we have to be deliberate about it. These kinds of challenges are not going to just fix themselves, and we can talk about it, but I think we have to come up with structures. We have to come up with, actual tactical ways that we can solve these problems. And I don't know that the board's going to have all the answers. I think we have some of them, but I think we need to work with the people and meet them where they are in these communities to understand how best to reach them. What kinds of changes or additions to our process might actually positively affect the communication and collaboration between communities. And then we have to pay attention to it, right? We can't just make decisions, and then put them on the shelf and assume that they're working. We need to actually, keep tabs on our progress and make sure that the things that we're doing or changing are having the effect we think they're going to have. So I don't think it's something that we can ever be done with. I think it's, as the communities change and grow and the topology of our district changes, we need to constantly be aware and sort of take the temperature of how well we're doing in that area.
Janice.
I think, as I said before, having seen families come together at the middle school level, I think somehow we need to be able to reach out to families before they get to the middle school, and not just families, but also community members, and invite them in. I know COVID shut down a lot of things as far as people being able to be in at schools, and one of the things that we could do is explore how can we I just went to the MG21 open house a week ago, and it was so cool to go in and see all of the different projects the students had been working on. So how can we invite the community into our schools to see what it is that the teachers and the students have been doing? Because I really think if the community can see what it is that the students are doing and the schools are doing, I think that really is going to bring a lot of support for the, both communities working together.
Eric.
Well, the collaboration with the communities, I don't feel like, on a board, I don't want to personally get involved with two different communities and how they feel about things. The people live in Cottage Grove because they made a choice to live there, and people live in Monona because they made a choice to live there. As a school district, we have to work together because we're a dual district. But I personally don't see, like an issue between Monona Grove and Cottage Grove. I think, we're two communities that work together. The issues to me with the two communities seem to come up with the way our school's configured, and we have our high school. So Cottage Grove has to come to Monona, and then the middle school, Monona has to go to Cottage Grove. I think that's where, there might be some frustration with some community members in Cottage Grove and some community members in Monona. So unfortunately, the way our district's set up, that's the way we have to do it right now. But I think that, looking forward with the growth of Cottage Grove, I don't know if, I wouldn't say we wouldn't ever get to the point of building another high school there, because I just don't know population-wise if that's possible. But, down the line somewhere, if the numbers are there, that could be a possibility. They would have to be pretty significant in order to make that feasible. But I think it's really just about respecting both communities and listening to both of the communities so that they feel like they have a voice. I do like the idea of having a board meeting in Cottage Grove, though. I think that would be great.
All right, and next question. This is related too. What is your opinion regarding a traditional Monona Grove School District middle school located in Monona beyond MG 21? And Philip would be the first person to answer.
So are we talking about replacing the middle school in Cottage Grove? I guess I'm not sure I
Yeah, I
understand
guess,
the question.
and I can only, this is a community member who submitted this question. If you have an opinion regarding
Yeah,
a middle school located in Monona.
so potentially an alternative middle school to the, so maybe we'd have two middle schools. That's how I'm going to interpret it, I guess. I don't have an opinion per se. You know, there would be a lot that would go into a decision like that, and we'd have to make sure that it would positively impact the kids first and foremost, right? I mean, everything needs to be driven by what is this going to do for the kids and the children in the district, and there would be a lot of research and data collection needed to come to a decision on whether that was something we could do. We'd have to find land for it and space for it. So that's not an easy question to sort of just answer easily and quickly. But I wouldn't say that I'm opposed or in favor of it at this point, because there's a lot we would need to learn about how that would serve our community and our children.
Your opinion, Janice?
The first 15 years of my career, the middle school was in Monona, and it was at Winnequa. So I don't think, and then the last 15 years, of course, we built Glacial Drumlin, and that's the middle school. I mean, I don't know what we would, because it's not clear in the question whether we would have two middle schools or one. I'm struggling to answer this question. Right now, I think our students are better off being together. And I think it's less important where the school is located. Right now, it's obviously in Cottage Grove because that's what the board and the community supported at the time. I wouldn't be opposed to one in Monona, but I really think unless we would have to study it before any kind of decision was made, and we would have to look at, are we separating Monona and Cottage Grove kids through middle school? Because that would have a big impact on their educational experiences. So I guess I'm still struggling to answer this question. I wouldn't be able to answer this really well unless I had more information.
Eric?
Well, for something like that to happen, we would have to have a significant increase in our enrollment. So we would be talking about an increase of the enrollment of 400 to 500 people, and that's just not going to happen for the next 10 years. So at least from my projections. Without that, I don't think it's financially possible for the two communities to do something like that. I think what we can do is look at alternative options like MG 21 that provide some. I think we need to do more alternative options and different types of ideas for schools outside of our normal system that we have set up. And I think that's something to look into. But a middle school, we do have to figure out what we want to do with Maywood. So that's going to be something that we have to look at down the line. But I don't think having a middle school, at least in the next 10 years in Monona, or a high school in Cottage Grove, is a possibility. But I understand it. I would love to have my daughters, not take a bus to Cottage Grove when they go to middle school. But I'm also okay with that. It also creates a connection to the community and other people to meet, other people to play soccer with, other people to do activities with. So, there's some good things about that transition and that change too that I certainly don't take for granted.
Katie?
I don't know that I can adequately answer this question, not understanding all the aspects of it, but I don't think, from my understanding of the financial standpoint, it's not possible right now. Am I opposed to it happening? No. But like Janice said, I really do like how it brings the community together, especially when they're younger versus when they're older, and now you're going to bring them together in Monona just for the high school. I don't think that would necessarily be appropriate. I think that, it's been echoed, a lot of research and studying needs to be done for this. I mean, my son goes to MG21, my oldest, and he went, so we came into Monona, right? Starting there versus the vice versa of come from Monona going into Cottage Grove. And I think exploring more opportunities like that is a great idea. But I think the financial feasibility of it right now, and I don't foresee the growth happening. I mean, we are growing, but like Eric said, that would be like 400, 500 kids. I don't see that happening in the future, near future, maybe 10 plus years from now.
Okay. Our next question, and Janice will be first. Winnequa is the only K through 5 school located in Monona. If and when Winnequa nears its enrollment limit, what do you propose to do?
Well, if Winnequa gets close to its enrollment limit, I'm sure the board will need to study what are our options. Previous to Winnequa being the pre-K through 5 school, we did use Maywood as an elementary school, and the lower grades were located at Maywood, and then the upper elementary were at Winnequa. So my understanding is that Maywood isn't being used right now, so that potentially could be a solution, but I think the board would really need to look at the data. What are the student numbers? How long are the student numbers supposed to be? How long will they remain at a higher level before a decision is made about where to put students or how to divide them up?
Eric?
I don't think it's going to get to that number, so I don't think it's going to be something that the Monona community is going to have to worry about. I mean, we're at 609, I think, for our enrollment at Winnequa right now. I'm not sure what the capacity is, but it's close to 700. I don't want to say what I know it is because I don't know the right number, but I don't think we're going to get to capacity. If we did, it would be, we would have some tools that we could work with. One of them is our open enrollment. So, that would be the first thing I would look at. We have open enrollment, and we have some control over those numbers based on capacity of our schools. So that's the first thing we would do as a district is we would close the open enrollment for Monona. And it's a K-4-5 school at Monona, or Winnequa's K-4-5. So that 4K is important too because there's a lot of people that come in for 4K. That would be the second option when we look at is the 4K. So let's say we got to capacity at Winnequa and Monona. First, we would be looking at enrollment and closing the open enrollment for students outside of the district that come in. The second tool or thing that we could use is looking at 4K and reconfiguring the 4K and finding other options where to put that. Maywood could be a place. We haven't decided as a board what we're going to do or use Maywood for. So those are the two things.
Katie?
If Winnequa would meet its capacity, I think we'd have to, as a board, look at all the options available. And the first thing that came to my mind was 4K. In Cottage Grove, prior to Granite Ridge being built and the pandemic, 4K was at multiple sites, right? So those children, we took over half the kids that probably were in 4K were either at Kids Safari or Learning Ladder. And so that opens up options if there are, daycares that are willing to do that and the district's willing to work with them. And like Maywood was brought up, right now the district owns that building and it's sitting empty. Is it going to be, ready to run, open? So I think we'd have to look at those different options. I'm trying to keep, I think, the younger kids in Monona, right? We don't want to bust them out to Cottage Grove for that because I believe the recent research and studies, it looks better for neighborhood schools. So keeping the kids here would be probably my priority at that younger age.
Philip?
Yeah, so first of all, an issue like this is not going to catch us off guard. We pay pretty close attention both at the board level and the administrative level at both current enrollment and projected enrollment because obviously there's so much tied to it between facilities planning, the budget cycle, right? We're keeping a very, very careful pulse on enrollment. So it's not going to catch us off guard. But if and when we felt like we were heading towards enrollment ceiling at Winnequa, I think, much like others have stated, there would be a study done, and I think every effort would be made to minimize impact on both the existing families as well as the district financially. So I think we would look at reconfiguration options with the existing school. Maywood may or may not factor into that. You know, we do own that building. We're currently leasing it out to the city. So I think it certainly would be on the table, but I think there may also be some options with the Winnequa property that we simply haven't looked at because we haven't needed to. So I think that there could be options that we just don't know about yet that we would become aware of if we were pushed in that direction.
All right, next question. What is your opinion regarding limiting screen time in classrooms of Monona Grove? And Eric starts.
Well, screen time is not always a bad thing if it's used for educational purposes. So I just want to be clear that if it's screen time and it's instructional screen time, I don't have any problems with that at all. I think that's the world we live in, so it can be used. I'm a teacher, I use all sorts of different ways to implement learning strategies with screen time. If we're talking about phones, I'm not a proponent of taking students' phones for any reason. I think that, they should want to come to school and learn and be engaged in the learning. There are ways to use phones in the classrooms to be productive as part of the learning environment and part of lessons. I mean, some teachers are doing that now. I know they do it a lot in college. I don't know how much they do it in the high schools because phones can be so distracting. But I don't want to have anything to do with removing phones from students.
Katie?
As my two children are sitting here on their iPads right now, I'm a big believer in, I really try to limit my children's screen time, and because I think it's important. I think the way the district uses screen time and electronics is really good and really, really important because that's where the world is going, right? Everybody's using their phone. How do they have their schedule? It's on their phone. They're using these electronics to do these things. So teaching the kids the appropriate way to use their phones and the computer and the internet, I think is really, really important to all our children. And I agree, I wouldn't want to take their phones away. Obviously, if they're using them disruptively, that would be addressed in a policy and would have to be talked about more. But having a child that uses his phone partially for communication and following a schedule, as well as monitoring his blood sugar levels, you can't just take some kids' phones away. But I think the way we have been incorporating is good. I think there's still room for improvement and growth on teaching them safe use of such devices.
Philip?
Yeah, so I think, first and foremost, any decision around screen time would have to be a collaboration between the board and our teachers, right, and our educational professionals. I'm not an educational professional myself, and so I think this is a kind of issue that the board wouldn't ever dictate to the district. I think it would be a collaborative type, if we were even talking about it. That said, I certainly would echo comments that have already been made around screen time being instructive, as long as it's not in place of something more valuable, right? I think then I don't have any objection to technology being used, and I agree that we live in an increasingly technologically focused world. Most of the jobs kids are going to end up in as they get out into their adulthood are going to require fluency in various forms of technology. And I think, we talk about media literacy, for example, right? That's really a technical challenge more than a lot of things. And so I think not ignoring it and embracing it and helping these kids understand how to use their technology and not hiding from it is important.
Janice?
Having recently taught both at the high school and the middle school, each school has their own set of rules for students regarding screen time and their personal screen devices. So I'm unsure about if the question is about whether they're using their Chromebooks or iPads in class versus having phones. I do know, just from being in the classroom, that it is a struggle, even when students only have their Chromebook, that is the district-issued Chromebook, it is still at times a challenge to get them to focus on the technology they're supposed to be using. And it is a daily challenge for our teachers and our technology department to keep students focused on the technology they're supposed to be using, because students will find ways around all of the blocks that get put up. So again, they need to learn appropriate technology usage. As far as phones, I think that each school, based on the age level of their students, should be setting the rules for, are phones allowed, how are they allowed, and each teacher within that framework also needs to be able to determine how are they going to be used in my classroom. So as far as band goes, we had the people who needed to use them for tuning could have them out, and everyone else had to put them away. Obviously, students who need them for medical issues, needed them for other related issues, those are written into plans, and obviously those students can always have their phone if needed.
All right. Our next question, Katie starts. As Cottage Grove continues to grow, what is your opinion about how the district should handle student numbers at the high school in Monona? And again, this was pre-submitted online, written in. I have no more clarification for you.
I think much like with the elementary school and first, growing at the seams, I think that we'll have to look as a board, look at what we have for a budget and ways that we can expand at the high school, right? We also have the alternative option of MG21, right? So there's another high school here in Monona. So I think just looking at those different aspects and doing the studies on how we can configure the school, like can we add on somewhere? How can we shift classrooms to keep, obviously we want to also try to keep classroom sizes smaller versus large. Just making those small shifts on doing that, doing research and studies, and like it was said earlier, we're not just going to unexpectedly know that we've outgrown our high school. We're going to have an idea about that ahead of time so we can start looking at those other alternative options, if there's buildings or there's land and things that we need to do for that.
Philip.
Yeah, so I think this is an issue, right? The growth of the high school in general. We know right now that we have some runway available to us before we're going to be forced to make a decision. And it's probably to the tune of about a decade minimum based on current projections. Could be longer, though. It's a little bit hard to finally pinpoint that. But I think that it would behoove us to start thinking about it, casually looking at what the options might be, so that as we get closer to being forced to seriously think about it, we have already considered some of what we can do. That being said, I think whatever we can do as a district to minimize the financial impact of resolving the capacity issue would be my first choice. Any time that we have a choice where everybody wins, we get a more space, good space for the students and the staff, and we don't have to spend millions and millions of dollars. I think that's a good thing. So we have a lot of investment in the current high school. I think one of the first things we look at is are there ways, creative ways that we can utilize that footprint more efficiently.
Janice?
Since I don't have the numbers or the information about projections, I don't exactly know how to answer this, but as Cottage Grove continues to grow, if there is an issue with student numbers at the high school, the board would need to take a look at that and decide what options are there. And there's probably a multitude of options. I would just hope that we would use a very transparent process in sharing that information, not only amongst the board, but with the communities, and then having that discussion so that, very public discussion, so that everyone would understand, like, where we're at with it and when might be a deadline that we would need to make a decision so that everyone's on board with the process.
Yeah, as Philip said, and it's about, our projections are showing 10 years at least out. It's quite a long time. It's also projections. It's hard to decide or base something off of that with all the unknowns that we have. But I do know the capacity. The high school, I think, is about 1,080 some students right now. And going back to what I said before about, configurations and grades and open enrollment, we still have the open enrollment as our first kind of way to look at the population, and we have control over that. So the board votes on our open enrollment numbers based on capacity and their staffing and stuff like that. So there's a couple steps even beyond the 10 years that we can use before we get to the point of, discussing potential new schools or something like that if we got to that growth number. But it's always something like, as Philip mentioned, that we have to pay attention to, and we can do some foreshadowing and planning to at least be in a good position when that does come around, if it does, for a district, so that we're not. I don't think it's something we're going to be caught off guard with. So, I hope.
What grade do you give the Monona Grove School District in terms of quality of education, and where is there room for improvement? Philip?
So my grade is going to be based in part on my experience as a parent so far, but I would give us an A. I think that, my family moved around a little bit before we landed in Monona and got to experience a couple other districts, and my experience here has been very positive so far. We've been very happy with everyone that we've worked with so far in the district at every level. And so while I say that, it doesn't mean that we're perfect. And so I think that there will always be room for improvement, but I don't want to pretend that I have the answers to that question. I think, that's where I see my role as being more of an enabler on the board. I think it's important for myself and the rest of the board members to conscientiously set policy and funding in such ways that the people that we hire, who are the experts, can be as effective as possible. And so I don't have a specific, idea on how we can change educational outcomes, but I am very interested in, paying attention to what our educators have to say and the experts that we hire say that they need, and to listen to those ideas, to weigh them against each other and make good choices that enable them to pursue improvement.
Janice?
I would also give our district an A. I believe that we have a really excellent teaching and teaching staff, as well as our paraprofessionals, and frankly, everyone on staff in all of the buildings. That being said, when you talk about improvement, I think our district could do a better job of reaching out to the teaching staff to find out what they think are things that we could improve in, because I know that they have opinions, and I know that the colleagues that I worked with are excellent teachers. And when they see students struggling, there aren't always the venues for bringing forward new ideas. There isn't a district-wide. There might be in individual schools, but there isn't a district-wide process for really bringing forward new ideas for education. And I would like to see that implemented, because I think if we listen to our staff, I think we can do even better things for students.
Eric?
If I say anything but an A, since I was on the board, I have to own the responsibility for that. But I'm going to say an AB, because I think that there's always a little room for improvement as a district. And speaking just from the experience of my daughter, who is in 4th grade, going to be going in 5th grade, and my new one, who's in 4 years, going to be starting, I'm really happy with her education. My wife and I have been teachers for our entire careers. So I think we're pretty critical and involved with her learning. And, while there are certainly things that come up here and there, I know from someone that has taught in multiple different districts, that we have a very, very good school district in Monona Grove. It's very, very good. And if you could look at the state scores and they could tell you one story, or you can have the experience of having your child go through the district, and you have a much more, connection to a story of what's going on with their education. So I'm really proud of this district, and I'm really happy with the education that my daughter is getting. And I think I'm very critical of that too. So if I didn't think that it wasn't going well, we wouldn't continue to stay here. So,
Katie?
I'm glad Eric said AB first, because I didn't want to be the only one. I definitely say AB. Having a 15-year-old, a third grader, and a first grader, and now 3-year-olds that are going to be coming into 4K. I've seen a wide variety of teaching, and through the pandemic, I think our district as a whole does a great job. The teachers we have really do care about the students. There's always room for improvement. I like how I have a son who's gifted, and they're able to help cater to him at MG21 to keep him learning and advancing in his learning and environment, and in projects and things that he enjoys to do to help him further with his career. I think our district has come a long ways. The new CKLA program is absolutely amazing. I heard amazing stories. I've heard from parents and from teachers and paras on how well, they're just amazed that these 4Kers are because they're piloting in one of the 4K classrooms, they're able to read, and they're very excited about that. I would like to see more collaboration, though, with the teachers on changes and how to keep just things changing with the ever-growing world that we live in, that we can make it better.
Well, there's a question that you may have covered in your opening statement, but I'll ask it again. Why do you want to be a school board member? And Janice, you're first.
I retired. I had an excellent career teaching in this district. I loved everyone that I worked with. I so enjoyed all of the students, and I want to serve our district in a different way. So while I'm done being a teacher, I really would like to serve on the board and bring my experience through those 30 years to the board to help the board be able to just bring a different perspective so that I can work collaboratively with the rest of the board to make decisions that are going to be the most useful ones for our students.
Eric?
I hear this question from my wife every time, multiple times a month. I say, because I do want to be involved with this community. I think that's really important. I think it's great that we have 4 people running for the board. I think that shows we have a healthy community, that people want to be involved. So I want to be involved really for my daughter. That's my that's my real motivation. Is I want to try to do whatever I can so that she has a positive education experience and have, somewhat of an influence on what that might be. And as a board member, I think you do get that. I also want to be more connected with the community too. I'm a pretty sociable person, so I like to know, what's happening and what people are thinking, and I like to solve problems. And being on the school board, you solve some pretty tough problems. It's hard to, actually make change, purposely hard because of the way the system is set up. But I think, learning how to collaborate with people, how to adapt, how to listen to other people's opinions, I think those are all really important skills that as community members, we need those types of things in the community. So that's how I feel.
Katie?
I've been asked this a lot recently. I personally just felt it was the time for me to do it now. Like I said, ages 15 to, twin 3-year-olds. I want to be really a big part of their education and their change. And especially having a child with a disability that has a very heavy IEP due to his condition, I can advocate for him, but I also want to make sure that sometimes as a parent, I have to fight for things, and I'm okay with that, and bringing in like my perspective, and then it's like an aha moment, and they're like, oh, why aren't we always doing this? Or I come in the beginning of the school year, I have all about Cade and everything about him, where he's at, what he's doing, what he's working hard in, and some of the things that he really, really enjoys. And every single teacher's like, we wish more parents would do this because we have that. And then I've actually seen after that, now they kind of hand that out as an IEP. Can you fill this out for it? And I was like, I already got it done. So I just want to make sure everyone's voice is heard. I know that having a child with a disability is really hard, and there's a lot of parents in our community struggling. And I want to make sure that their voices are heard. And if we can make things easier for them, and if I help advocate for them and give them ideas. But if we can do it as a change for all, I think it would be great.
Yeah, so I think that participation is key to the strength of our community. We're built on that sort of requirement that people in the community participate in our structures and our organizations. And so for me, when I look back at my life, I've had so many opportunities, and they're all tied to some part of my public education journey, whether it's K-12, or then I went to UW Whitewater for college, another public institution. But every step of the way, there's been advantages that I've gained from those experiences, and I think this is an opportunity for me to take a lot of what I've learned in the past 20 years of working in the private sector, solving challenging problems, collaborating with others, finding consensus and that sort of thing, and take that and pivot it into something that supports the kids coming up behind me, and sort of try to get them the opportunities that I had, and make sure that that doesn't get eroded, because frankly there are forces that would erode it, and if they had their way, and I want to make sure that I do what I can to. I use the word stewardship a lot when people ask me this question. Right? We have a great district, we have great teachers, and we need reasonable people to sit on the board and do the work to make sure that they can do their jobs well. And so that's what I want to do. I want to give my time and my energy and the experience that I have to try to make that as successful as possible.
That does it from the for the questions, but I guess I'll add one here in terms of, is there an issue that's facing the school district that's important to you that has not been addressed during this forum by the questions submitted? And I think Eric would be first.
I can't really think, of a specific issue. I know when I came in, it was the equity piece, and I think I, did try to do something about that. We have a teaching learning equity committee now, and I think it's important for that work to continue. I don't envision, the COVID thing is a good example, though, of something that can always happen that you're not prepared for. And can certainly create a lot of discourse and confusion and frustration and challenges. So I wouldn't say that, right now there's any one specific issue that I envision. I do think facility-wise, we're going to have to make some decisions on some of the property we have in Maywood and decide what we're going to do with that. But I don't have any real specific thing.
Okay. Katie?
I think pretty much everything has been covered. I think the district has made great gains in diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, but there's always that room for improvement, and making sure that we're there for all students and welcoming to all students, and the students are feeling safe in their environment.
Philip?
Yeah, similarly, I don't have one hot button issue, but I do think it's important to stress that probably all of the issues that are important to a district are journeys. They're never done. They're not check boxes that, you get the right board and they're going to just solve it, and then you're going to put that behind you and say, we fixed teacher pay or we fixed equity, right? These are things that are going to consistently need attention, focus, and the ways that we approach these issues, I think, will change over time as well, right, as the world continues to change and evolve. So you're never going to be done with the critical issues. And like also has been mentioned, there's going to be things that we can't anticipate, like COVID. Other political things will come up that we didn't see on the horizon. So I see the job of a board is very fluid. And so I think it's good to have an open mind as a board member and know that we're going to have to approach issues as they come to us. The facilities issues are never going to be finished either, right? There's no building that you can build that is done forever. You always have to replace a roof at some point. You always have to replace HVAC at some point, et cetera. So there's always going to be problems to solve and things to improve on. So I think, sort of my one issue, if I put it that way, is that we have a functioning board. I think having a board that works really well together, can get things done, doesn't stalemate, doesn't, sit on things way past when we needed to make a decision on them and hold the staff hostage, right? That's the important thing for me, is that our board is really high functioning and works together well.
Janice?
I don't have one particular issue that we didn't discuss, but I will agree with Philip about the board needing to be able to function well. I think that the ability to have processes where we collaborate together as a board and then together with the staff and together with the community is the most important thing that we can do to move forward and to have everyone feel comfortable moving with the decision-making process. And I think just increasing the communication about the issues facing our district.
All right, we will go to closing statements then. Again, 1:30, and Katie, you start the closing statements.
I want to first thank you for being here today and taking the time for this. And it means a lot to me, and I'm sure it means a lot to everybody else. I think we have 4 really great candidates here. Why I would say, I think I bring a very different lens to the board on being in Cottage Grove, to having 5 children with very diverse educational backgrounds and needs. And I bring a really strong advocacy skills for our teachers and our staff, and funding issues that we're going to continue to face going forward now and going forward. I don't see that it's going to get any better, and I know funding is an issue, and there's always an uproar when we have to put more money into our schools and our taxes being raised. So looking for alternative approaches to that is really important to me, and making sure that we keep diversity at our forefront and equity and inclusion for all students and staff.
Yeah, so like I mentioned at the beginning, I've been on the board for 1 year, and I really feel like I'm just getting started. That first year was a lot of learning and really opened my eyes to what it means to be an effective board member. One of the things that, it makes me feel confident that this is something I should continue to pursue, right? Because it's not just about me. It's not just about me wanting to be on the board. I'm also looking for signals that I should be on the board. And over the past year, I can say I've disagreed with each board member on something, maybe multiple things at different times, right? There's not a single board member I haven't been at odds with on various issues, and yet I have support from all 6 of the other board members for my candidacy. And so that's the feedback that I've been given that, makes me think, okay, I'm doing something right in terms of collaborating and working positively with the board to come to conclusions. I'm looking forward to serving a full term on the board. Like I just mentioned, I think the board functioning at a high level is very important to the district. No single board member has all the answers or ever will on any particular issue, and I think it's really the collection of the board and the community and the staff coming together to solve problems that really gets things done, and I'm looking forward to just being one of those voices and a strong set of ears in those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Janice?
I am looking forward to hopefully being elected to the board. I believe I bring a unique experience and history to the board, and I think that will allow me to be an effective board member. I'm a good listener. I love working to solve problems, and I love to collaborate with other people to do that. I think my service to the district gives me that wide range of history. I've taught thousands of students, and I've gotten to know thousands of families, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work collaboratively, not only with new board members, but also with our new superintendent and with the administration in the buildings, the principals in the buildings. I think our district is an excellent district, and I just want the opportunity to be able to help in a different way.
And Eric.
Well, this will be my third term, so I've served 2 terms on the board, and I hope that the community has found my service valuable and elects me for a third time. My first term, I referenced before, started and proposed the Teaching, Learning, and Equity Committee, which is now a standing committee. I'm currently the chairperson of the Personnel Committee. But I think most importantly, I hope that I am a person that listens to the community, and I've proven that I've listened and responded and been respectful of everybody's opinions in the community and tried to bring those as concerns of my constituents to the board on certain issues that have come up. So I take it very seriously. Every email that I get, I try to respond to. Any questions I have, I'm always try to make myself available to the community because I'm not on the board to just present my opinions and views on things. I'm on the board to represent the communities of Monona and Cottage Grove. And that's really the most important thing. So there have been things where I might not necessarily think myself I agree with it, but I think it's important to the community that I will try to advocate for those people on the board. And I hope to continue to do that for a third term.
And with that, we conclude this forum with the candidates who are running for Monona Grove School Board. Thank you to all of the candidates for being here. Thank you to Monona Community Media for organizing and sponsoring this forum, and thanks to all the community questions that came in. I'm Joy Cardine. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Dane County. Thank you for watching, and please vote on April 2nd.